For almost half a century, there's been one band that's just been the absolute definition of rock and roll excess. They're the blueprint, right? The archetype. So we're going to get into the story of Mötley Crüe and figure out how they built a brand that, honestly, against all odds, just refuses to break.
So where do we even start this story? Well, believe it or not, we're starting in the streaming era. Yeah, really. Back in 2019, when the movie The Dirt dropped on Netflix, something pretty wild happened. A band that, let's be honest, had its heyday in the 80s suddenly just exploded. They were everywhere, and they found this massive brand new audience.
Which, makes you wonder, how in the world did these four guys from the Sunset Strip create something so big, so powerful, that it could survive, everything? I'm talking lineup changes, huge cultural shifts, and just decades of their own insane internal chaos. So yeah, let's break it down.
Okay, to really get this, we've got to go back, way back, to the beginning. We're talking the early 1980s, on a Sunset Strip that was just hungry for something new, some kind of spectacle. And this is it. This is the actual ad that Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee put in a local paper. Wanted, loud, rude, aggressive guitarist. That tells you everything you need to know about what they were aiming for right from day one. They weren't just hiring a musician, they were casting a character. And the guy who answered that call, that was Mick Mars.
And every single piece of this puzzle was absolutely essential. You had Nikki Sixx, he was the mastermind, the architect of the whole thing. Then you got Tommy Lee, this absolute powerhouse on the drums. Mick Mars, he brought that gritty, raw, bluesy sound. And then the frontman, Vince Neil, the look, the voice, pure pop metal gold. When you put them all together, man, it was the perfect storm.
And get this, they started with basically nothing, $6,000. That's it. That was the entire budget for their first album, Too Fast for Love. They banked it out in 3 days and put it out on their own little label. Talk about DIY grit. That's the definition of it.
But look, having grit gets you started. It doesn't make you a global star. For that, you need a plan. And these guys were about to engineer their rebellion into something massive.
So how'd they pull it off? Well, it was all about calculated controversy. Their second album, Shout at the Devil, came out right in the middle of the whole satanic panic thing that was sweeping America. Now, most people would run from that, right? Not them. They leaned straight into it. They used all that devilish imagery, all the outrage from parents, and turned it into the best marketing tool you could possibly imagine.
And wow, did it work. The results were just immediate and insane. Their chart position shot up 60 spots. Sales just exploded. This wasn't just a little bit of growth, it was a complete quantum leap. They were launched into the mainstream, and it was all powered by the exact controversy everyone told them to avoid.
Yeah, and this chart right here really shows you what that looks like. From 1 platinum album to 4. They didn't just sell a few more records, they literally quadrupled their entire commercial footprint in 1 year. It was pretty clear they had stumbled onto a winning formula.
But the Crüe's next big move wasn't going to be about controversy. Nope, this time it was all about the music itself. They were about to basically invent a whole new kind of hit single, one that would go on to define the rest of the decade. So what was it?
The power ballad. Okay, so they didn't technically invent it, but they absolutely perfected it. Their song Home Sweet Home became the template, the blueprint for everyone else. And think about it, in the age of MTV, this was pure genius. It let these tough, hard rock bands show a softer side. Suddenly they were romantic, and that made them appeal to a way, way bigger audience. And it was like a recipe, a simple 4-step formula you could repeat over and over. You start with that emotional piano intro, throw in a soaring guitar solo, build to a huge epic chorus, and then wrap it all up in a must-see MTV video. It became the blueprint for basically every other glam metal band out there. This wasn't just a song, you guys. In the 80s, this was a license to print money.
And all of this, it all led to 1989. The band actually made a group decision to get sober, and they came out with Dr. Feelgood. It was this slick, perfect album that went straight to #1. It cemented them, without a doubt, as the biggest and baddest rock band on the entire planet.
So they had built this perfect machine, perfectly tuned for the 1980s. But the decade was over, and that machine was about to drive head-on into a wall of Seattle grunge. Yeah, the party was officially over.
So in '92, they do something drastic. They fire Vince Neil. And they bring in a new singer, John Corabi, and completely change their sound to this grittier alt-metal thing. But the whole world had changed. Grunge was king now, with all its angst and authenticity, and suddenly the whole Mötley Crüe 80s excess thing just looked old.
The band, they were really proud of the album they made, but the fans, they just weren't having it.
And this number, well, it says it all, doesn't it? 4,000. That's how many tickets they sold for the first show of their new tour, in an arena that holds 15,000. Oof. It was just a brutal, clear sign that their time at the top was, at least for now, over.
So, for the next few years, things were kinda messy. Reunions, lineup changes, a lot of struggle. But then came the 21st century, and with it, an unexpected chance to reboot the entire Mötley Crüe machine for a whole new generation.
Remember that Netflix movie, The Dirt? The second it came out in 2019, their Spotify streams went through the roof. We're talking a jump of over 600%. The movie wasn't just a movie, it became this cultural moment. It told their insane story to the world all over again, and everybody got hooked.
And it wasn't just a one-off thing on Spotify. Nope. Over on Apple Music, the numbers were even crazier, a spike of more than 1,000%. This was not just a bunch of old fans getting nostalgic. This was a full-on digital resurrection. It proved that the myth of Mötley Crüe was as powerful as it ever was. But here's the part that really blows my mind. Who was listening? Look at this. A whopping 64% of their new listeners were between 18 and 34. These are kids who weren't even born when Dr. Feelgood came out. So Mötley Crüe didn't just get their old fans back. They created a whole new generation of them.
So this incredible comeback leads to these gigantic stadium tours, huge late career success that nobody saw coming. But, because with this band there's always a but. True to form, that chaos that's always been part of their DNA, it was bubbling up again right behind the scenes.
And then in 2023, it all just kind of exploded. Founding guitarist Mick Mars drops this bombshell lawsuit. And the allegations are really serious. He's claiming they basically ganged up to kick him out of the band, tried to cut his share of the profits from 25% down to 5%, and, this is a big one, he accused them of faking it on stage, using pre-recorded tracks on their huge reunion tour. It's messy, it's complicated, it's still going on, and it's just another wild chapter in the Mötley Crüe saga.
So all of this brings us to one last really big question. When you look back at everything, 4 decades of huge hits, total chaos, collapse, and this unbelievable resurrection, you just have to wonder, what's their greatest creation? Is it the music, or is it the myth? The unbreakable, absolutely larger-than-life story of Mötley Crüe itself.